In a galaxy far, far away from Earth, there lived an alien race known as the Zorvathians. They were tall, with shimmering blue skin and glowing eyes that could pierce through darkness. Their technology was beyond anything humans could imagine. The Zorvathians had mastered space travel, energy weapons, and even mind control. For centuries they roamed the universe, conquering weaker planets and taking whatever resources they wanted. To them, power was everything, and mercy was a weakness they couldn't afford. Their leader, Vrax, was the most feared of all. He stood, taller than most of his kind, with sharp horns curling backward from his head like a crown. His voice boomed like thunder, and his laughter was cold, echoing through the halls of his massive spaceship. Vrax believed himself to be the greatest being in existence, and he ruled his people with an iron fist. He saw other species as nothing more than insects, small, insignificant, and unworthy of respect. One day, while patrolling the edges of their territory, Vrax's ship intercepted strange signals coming from a distant planet. These signals were weak but clear enough to analyze. When the crew played them back, they heard something unusual: human voices. At first it sounded like nonsense, music, chatter, and strange noises. But one particular sound caught Vrax's attention. It was laughter. High-pitched, uncontrollable, giggles filled the airwaves. Vrax listened closely, trying to understand what this noise meant. The source of the laughter turned out to be a young human girl. She was sitting on a couch in front of a television screen, laughing at a silly cartoon, character tripping over its own feet. Her joy was pure and innocent, completely unaware of the vast universe outside her tiny world. Vrax stared at the footage, his glowing eyes narrowing in disbelief. How could such a fragile creature find happiness in something so trivial? To him, her laughter was absurd, almost insulting. He leaned back in his throne-like chair, letting out a deep, mocking laugh. "Look at this," Vrax bellowed, turning to his advisors who hovered nervously nearby. "This is what passes for entertainment on this pathetic little planet." A child laughing at nonsense. What a joke. His laughter echoed through the chamber, making the others flinch. They knew better than to question their leader when he was in such a mood. Vrax continued to mock the humans, pointing out how primitive their technology seemed compared to the advanced systems aboard his ship. He sneered at their small, frail bodies and their reliance on emotions instead of logic. "They are nothing," he declared. "Weaklings playing pretend games while we rule the stars. Let them have their jokes and their laughter. It will do them no good when we arrive." But as Vrax spoke, a faint flicker of curiosity stirred within him. Why did this girl laugh so freely? Was she not afraid of the dangers lurking in life? On his planet, such displays of emotion were rare. People were taught to suppress feelings like joy or sadness, focusing only on survival and domination. Yet here was this human child, radiating happiness without a care in the world. For a brief moment, Vrax wondered if there was something missing in his own life. But then he shook off the thought. Such musings were beneath him. Humans were nothing more than pests waiting to be crushed underfoot. Meanwhile, back on Earth, humanity remained blissfully unaware of the looming threat. Life went on as usual. Children played in parks, families gathered around dinner tables, and scientists tinkered with inventions in labs. No one suspected that their peaceful existence was about to be shattered by an alien fleet led by a ruthless tyrant. Unbeknownst to Vrax, however, Earth wasn't entirely defenseless. Beneath layers of secrecy, governments around the globe had been working together on a project called Ascension. This initiative aimed to prepare Earth for any potential extraterrestrial threats. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists collaborated tirelessly, pooling knowledge and resources to create something extraordinary. What Vrax didn't know, and what would soon become painfully obvious, was that Earth's skies hid a secret. Massive star destroyers, camouflaged using experimental cloaking technology, floated silently above every continent. These ships weren't just machines, they represented humanity's determination to protect itself. Armed with cutting-edge weaponry and powered by fusion reactors, They were designed to repel any invasion force foolish enough to approach. As Vrax prepared his fleet for conquest, he never imagined that his arrogance would lead him straight into a trap. His decision to invade Earth stemmed from his belief that humans were too weak to fight back. He assumed they would cower in fear, begging for mercy once they saw the might of the Zorvathian armada. Little did he know, humanity had been quietly building its strength, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And somewhere in Iowa, a little girl named Lily laughed again, completely unaware that her simple act of joy had already begun to change the course of history. Her laughter, though seemingly harmless, carried a message of hope and resilience, a message that would soon resonate across the stars. For now, Vrax remained confident in his superiority, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. But fate has a way of humbling even the proudest beings. As his fleet drew closer to Earth, the stage was set for a confrontation unlike any the universe had ever seen. Would Vrax's hubris prove to be his downfall? Or would humanity's courage falter? In the face of overwhelming odds, only time would tell. The Zorvathian fleet approached Earth with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. Their ships glided silently through space, sleek and menacing like predators closing in on prey. Vrax sat in his command chair aboard the Zorvathi's Pride, watching as Earth grew larger on the view screen. To him it was just another planet, small, insignificant, and ripe for conquest. He had seen countless worlds fall under his rule, their inhabitants either crushed or enslaved. This time would be no different, or so he thought. As the alien armada neared Earth's orbit, they expected resistance. Perhaps primitive rockets launching from the surface or feeble attempts at communication. What they didn't expect was silence, complete and utter silence. No missiles soared toward them, no desperate broadcasts pleaded for mercy. It was as if Earth itself was holding its breath, waiting. Then, without warning, the sky changed. Above every continent, the atmosphere seemed to ripple like water disturbed by a stone. For a moment it looked like an optical illusion, a trick of light or some natural phenomenon. But then, as if a curtain had been pulled back, the truth was revealed. Massive star destroyers emerged from their hidden positions, gleaming in the sunlight. Dozens of them floated majestically above Earth's surface, each one bristling with weapons and glowing with energy shields. The sight was breathtaking and terrifying. Vrax froze, his glowing eyes widening in disbelief. "What is this?" he stammered, leaning forward in his seat. His advisors scrambled to analyze the situation, but even their advanced sensors struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. These ships weren't supposed to exist. Humanity wasn't supposed to have technology capable of rivaling the Zorvathians. Yet here they were, staring down the invaders with machines that looked more advanced than anything in the galaxy. On board the lead star destroyer, Captain Maria Alvarez stood calmly in the command center, her hands clasped behind her back. She watched as the Zorvathian fleet hesitated, clearly caught off guard. "They're scanning us," reported Lieutenant Harper, seated at the sensor station. "But I don't think they know what to make of our systems." "Good," Captain Alvarez replied with a faint smile. "Let them wonder. Let them doubt. That's when we strike." Back on Earth, people gathered around screens to watch the unfolding drama. News outlets broadcast live footage of the alien fleet facing off against humanity's secret defenders. At first, fear rippled through cities and towns as people realized the scale of the threat. But as the star destroyers appeared, a wave of relief washed over the planet. Cheers erupted in living rooms, schools, and workplaces. Humanity wasn't defenseless after all. It had been preparing for this moment for years. Unbeknownst to the Zorvathians, Earth's governments had long suspected they weren't alone in the universe. Decades earlier, scientists had detected strange signals coming from deep space, patterns too complex to be random. Governments worldwide agreed to collaborate secretly under Project Ascension, pooling resources to develop cutting-edge technology. Billions of dollars were funneled into research labs, where brilliant minds worked tirelessly to create something unprecedented. The result was the star destroyers. Hidden beneath layers of atmospheric camouflage, These behemoths were designed not only to defend Earth but also to deter any potential invaders. Powered by experimental fusion reactors and armed with plasma cannons, railguns, and EMP generators, they represented humanity's best chance at survival. And now, as the aliens hovered uncertainly in orbit, the project's true purpose came into focus. "Commander," said Lieutenant Harper, breaking the silence. "Their flagship is broadcasting a message. They're demanding surrender." "Captain," Alvarez raised an eyebrow. "Demanding surrender after seeing this?" She gestured to the view screen where the Zorvathian fleet loomed nervously. "Tell them we decline." Harper relayed the response, and moments later, the Zorvathians reacted. Smaller fighter craft began swarming toward the Star Destroyers, attempting to probe their defenses. Plasma beams streaked through space, testing the strength of Earth's energy shields, but the human fleet remained unfazed. Automated turrets swiveled into position, firing bursts of concentrated energy that obliterated several enemy fighters instantly. Inside the Zorvathi's Pride, panic spread among the crew. "Their weapons are too powerful," shouted one officer, his voice trembling. "We can't penetrate their shields." Vrax clenched his fists, his mind racing. How could this be happening? He had spent centuries conquering weaker species, relying on the superiority of Zorvathian technology. Now, faced with an opponent who matched or even surpassed his own capabilities, he felt a flicker of doubt. Could he have underestimated humanity? Was this really the same species whose laughter he had mocked? Back on Earth, military commanders coordinated their efforts, ensuring every ship operated as part of a unified force. Artificial intelligence systems analyzed the Zorvathians' movements, predicting their tactics and adjusting strategies accordingly. Missiles streaked through space, targeting weak points in the alien ship's armor. Laser arrays fired in rapid succession, creating dazzling displays of light that illuminated the battlefield. Every shot carried centuries of human ingenuity and determination. Despite their initial success, however, the humans knew they couldn't afford complacency. The Zorvathians still outnumbered them, and their experience in warfare gave them an edge. Slowly but surely, the invaders regrouped, launching counterattacks designed to overwhelm Earth's defenses. Waves of smaller ships swarmed the Star Destroyers, trying to disable their weapons and breach their shields. Explosions rocked the hulls of both sides' vessels as the battle intensified. Amidst the chaos, Captain Alvarez maintained her composure. "Focus fire on their carriers," she ordered. "If we take out their support ships, the rest will crumble." Her words proved prophetic. As Earth's forces concentrated their attacks on key targets, the Zorvathian fleet began to falter. One by one, their larger ships succumbed to relentless barrages of plasma and kinetic energy. Debris scattered across space, forming a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered dreams. Even Vrax's flagship, the Zorvathi's Pride, sustained heavy damage, its once impenetrable shields flickering dangerously close to failure. Desperation drove Vrax to drastic measures. He ordered his remaining ships to form a tight formation around his flagship, using their combined firepower to create a defensive barrier. But it wasn't enough. Earth's Star Destroyers moved with precision, exploiting gaps in the alien formation and picking off stragglers. The tide of the battle had turned, and there was nothing Vrax could do to stop it. As explosions lit up the void, one of Earth's captains made a bold decision. Captain Elena Morales, commanding the Eagle's Resolve, led a daring maneuver that would change the course of the fight. Spotting an opening in the Zorvathian line, she ordered her ship to accelerate directly toward the heart of the enemy fleet. Her crew protested, fearing the risk, but Morales remained resolute. "Trust me," she said firmly. "This is our chance." With engines roaring, the Eagle's Resolve surged forward, dodging incoming fire as it closed the distance to the Zorvathian flagship. At the last possible moment, Morales unleashed a devastating salvo of plasma beams and missiles, striking the Zorvathi's Pride with pinpoint accuracy. The blast tore through its weakened shields and struck its core reactor, triggering a catastrophic chain reaction. Fire engulfed the massive vessel as it broke apart, sending shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. Cheers erupted aboard the Eagle's Resolve as the crew celebrated their hard-won victory. But there was no time to rest. The battle raged, on though the Zorvathians' morale had been shattered. Without their leader's flagship to rally around, the invaders began retreating, fleeing back into the depths of space. Earth's forces pursued cautiously, ensuring the aliens wouldn't regroup for another attack. For Vrax, defeat tasted bitter. Stranded in an escape pod, hurtling toward Earth's surface, he reflected on the events that had led him here. He had entered this conflict believing himself invincible, dismissing humanity as weak and unworthy. Now, faced with the consequences of his hubris, he realized how wrong he had been. As his pod crashed into a quiet field in Iowa, he wondered if redemption was even possible, or if his fate was sealed. Little did he know, redemption often begins in the most unexpected places. Somewhere nearby, a little girl laughed again, her joy echoing through the air like a melody of hope. And in that laughter lay the seeds of change, not just for Vrax, but for two worlds destined to collide. The moment Earth's star destroyers revealed themselves, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The once hidden fleet emerged from their cloaked positions, gleaming like metallic giants in the sunlight. Their sheer size was awe-inspiring. Each ship stretched hundreds of kilometers long, bristling with weapons and glowing with energy shields. For the Zorvathians, who had expected an easy victory over a primitive planet, this sudden unveiling was nothing short of a nightmare. Vrax stared at the holographic display in his command center, his glowing eyes wide with disbelief. "What is this?" he roared, slamming his fist against the console. His advisors scrambled to provide answers, but none could explain how such a backward species had developed technology capable of rivaling their own. Vrax's mind raced as he watched Earth's ships align perfectly into formation, their movements synchronized as if choreographed by some unseen force. He had underestimated humanity, and now, that mistake might cost him everything. The first salvo came without warning. Bright streaks of plasma erupted from Earth's star destroyers, slicing through space toward the Zorvathian fleet. The invaders barely had time to react before the deadly beams struck home, tearing through their hulls with devastating precision. Explosions lit up the void as dozens of alien ships were obliterated in seconds. Panic spread among the Zorvathians as they realized they were outgunned and outmaneuvered. What should have been a routine conquest had turned into a brutal fight for survival. Back on Earth, people gathered around screens in homes, offices, and public squares to watch live broadcasts of the battle. At first, fear gripped the planet as news of the alien invasion spread. But as humanity witnessed its defenders retaliating with unmatched strength, fear gave way to hope and pride. Parents hugged their children tightly, whispering reassurances that Earth would not fall so easily. Soldiers stationed across the globe stood ready, prepared to defend their homelands if the aliens managed to breach the orbital blockade. Even those who had never thought much about extraterrestrial life found themselves cheering for the brave men and women piloting the star destroyers high above. In space, the battle raged on. Earth's forces operated with machine-like efficiency, thanks to advanced artificial intelligence systems analyzing every move the Zorvathians made. These AIs predicted enemy tactics moments before they happened, allowing Earth's commanders to counterattack with devastating accuracy. Missiles streaked through the darkness, targeting weak points in the alien ship's armor. Laser cannons fired in rapid succession, creating dazzling light shows that illuminated the battlefield. Every shot fired by Earth's fleet carried centuries of human ingenuity and determination. But despite their initial success, the humans knew they couldn't afford to grow complacent. The Zorvathians were still a formidable foe, with numbers and experience on their side. Slowly but surely, the invaders regrouped, launching counterattacks designed to overwhelm Earth's defenses. Waves of smaller fighter craft swarmed the star, destroyers attempting to disable their weapons and breach their shields. It was a desperate gamble, but one born out of necessity. If they failed, the Zorvathians would lose more than just a battle. They would lose face, shattering their reputation as the dominant force in the galaxy. Amidst the chaos, Vrax fought to maintain control of his crumbling fleet. His flagship, the Zorvathi's Pride, was one of the largest and most heavily armed ships in his armada. Yet even it struggled under the relentless assault from Earth's forces. Plasma blasts hammered its shields, causing them to flicker dangerously close to failure. Inside the ship, alarms blared constantly, and crew members shouted orders over the din. Vrax paced the bridge, his usual arrogance replaced by mounting frustration. How could this be happening? How could a species he had dismissed as insignificant turn the tide so decisively? Desperation drove Vrax to take drastic measures. He ordered his remaining ships to focus all firepower on a single star destroyer, hoping to break through Earth's line and create an opening for retreat. The targeted ship, a vessel named Eagle's Resolve, shuddered under the barrage, its shields weakening with each impact. On board, Captain Elena Morales gritted her teeth as she monitored the damage reports flooding her screen. Her crew worked tirelessly to keep the ship operational, rerouting power to critical systems and patching breaches in the hull. "We can't hold out much longer," shouted Lieutenant Chen, his voice tense with urgency. "Their weapons are too powerful." Captain Morales nodded grimly. She knew what was at stake. If the Eagle's Resolve fell, the rest of the fleet would be vulnerable to attack. Taking a deep breath, she activated the ship's emergency protocols. "All hands prepare for evasive maneuvers," she commanded. "Divert all available power to the forward cannons. We're going to hit them where it hurts." With a deafening roar, the Eagle's Resolve unleashed a concentrated burst of energy directly at the lead Zorvathian ship. The blast tore through its weakened shields and struck its core reactor, triggering a catastrophic explosion. Debris scattered across space as the massive vessel disintegrated, taking several smaller ships with it. Cheers erupted aboard the Eagle's Resolve as the crew celebrated their hard-won victory. But there was no time to rest. The battle was far from over. As the fighting continued, Vrax grew increasingly desperate. His once mighty fleet was being decimated, and escape seemed impossible. Then, disaster struck. A stray missile from Earth's forces struck the Zorvathi's Pride, damaging its propulsion system and leaving it stranded in orbit. Alarm screamed throughout the ship as gravity wells pulled it closer to Earth's atmosphere. Vrax clenched his fists, rage boiling inside. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was meant to conquer, not be conquered. "Prepare my escape pod," he snarled at his terrified crew. There was no way he would go down with his ship. As the Zorvathi's Pride began its descent, Vrax boarded a small, sleek pod and launched himself into space. The pod hurtled away from the doomed flagship, narrowly avoiding collisions with debris. But fate had one final twist in store for the arrogant leader. Instead of reaching safety, Vrax's pod veered off course due to a malfunction in its navigation system. It plummeted toward Earth, crashing into a quiet field in rural Iowa. Smoke billowed from the wreckage as Vrax stumbled out, injured and disoriented. He looked around, expecting to see armies mobilizing to capture him. Instead, he found himself surrounded by open fields and the faint sound of laughter drifting on the wind. Confused and wary, Vrax followed the sound until he reached a small group of children playing nearby. Among them was a familiar face, the same girl whose laugh he had mocked weeks earlier. She froze when she saw him, her wide eyes filled with both fear and curiosity. For a moment, neither moved. Then slowly the girl stepped forward, holding out a bottle of water. Vrax hesitated, unsure of what to do. He had spent centuries viewing other species as inferior, yet here was a human child showing kindness despite his monstrous appearance. Something stirred within him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Was this what the humans called empathy? Could such a simple act hold more power than all the weapons in his arsenal? For the first time, Vrax questioned everything he believed about strength, superiority, and conquest. The battle raging above Earth faded into the background as he locked eyes with the girl. Little did he know, this encounter would change not only his fate, but the future of two worlds. The crash site was eerily quiet, save for the rustling of tall grass swaying in the gentle breeze. Vrax stood there, his towering frame casting a long shadow over the field. His blue skin shimmered faintly under the sunlight, but his usual aura of intimidation was replaced by confusion and vulnerability. He had never felt so exposed or so small. For all his power, for all the destruction he had unleashed across galaxies, here he was, stranded on a planet he once dismissed as insignificant, facing a group of curious children. Lily, the girl who had laughed so freely in that cartoon broadcast, stepped forward cautiously. Her heart raced, but her curiosity outweighed her fear. She had seen pictures of aliens in books and movies, but nothing could have prepared her for the sight of one, standing right in front of her. Despite his sharp horns, glowing eyes, and intimidating stature, she noticed something else about him, something softer, almost sad. It was in the way he hesitated, the way his glowing eyes darted uncertainly between her and the other kids. Are you hurt?" Lily asked softly, holding out the bottle of water. Her voice trembled slightly, but she didn't back away. The other children stayed behind her, whispering nervously among themselves. None of them understood what was happening, but they trusted Lily. She was brave like that. Vrax stared at the bottle, unsure of what to make of it. He had seen humans drink water before during his surveillance of Earth's broadcasts, but this simple gesture puzzled him. Why would this tiny human offer him anything? Wasn't she afraid? Shouldn't she be screaming or running away? Instead, she stood there looking up at him with wide, unflinching eyes. Slowly, he reached out and took the bottle. His large fingers wrapped awkwardly around its slender shape, making it look comically small in his grasp. He examined it closely, then glanced back at Lily. "Why, do you help me?" He growled, his deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. His tone wasn't angry, just confused, almost childlike. Lily tilted her head, trying to understand his words. Though his accent was strange and his speech halting, she caught the gist of what he was asking. "Because you're hurt," she replied simply. "And because it's nice to help people." "People?" Vrax repeated, his glowing eyes narrowing. "I am no person. I am Zorvathian. You are human. We are not the same." "But you're still alive," Lily countered, her voice firm despite her small size. "And being alive is enough." Her words struck a chord deep within Vrax. No one had ever spoken to him like that, not even his own kind. Back on his home planet, life was measured by strength, dominance, and utility. If someone was weak, they were discarded. If they served no purpose, they were forgotten. But here was this human child saying that just being alive mattered. It was a concept so foreign to him that it made his mind reel. Over the next few hours, Lily tried to communicate with Vrax, using gestures and broken phrases to bridge the gap between their species. She pointed to objects around them, a tree, a bird flying overhead, the sun, and named them in English. Vrax listened intently, mimicking her words in his gravelly voice. At first, it felt ridiculous. Him, a mighty conqueror, learning basic vocabulary from a child. But as time passed, he found himself enjoying the interaction. There was something refreshing about the simplicity of it, something pure that he hadn't experienced in centuries. Meanwhile, word of the aliens' crash landing spread quickly through the small town. News crews arrived, followed by government, officials and scientists eager to study the extraterrestrial visitor. Military vehicles rolled into the area, setting up a perimeter around the field. Soldiers armed with weapons surrounded Vrax and the children, their faces tense with caution. The atmosphere shifted from curiosity to tension. Lily's parents arrived soon after, their expressions a mix of relief and worry. They hugged her tightly, checking for any signs of injury. When they saw Vrax standing nearby, their protective instincts kicked in. "Stay back," Lily's father shouted, stepping between his daughter and the alien. "Don't come near her." But Lily shook her head, breaking free from her mother's grip. "He won't hurt us," she insisted. "He's scared, just like we are." "Scared?" The soldiers exchanged skeptical glances. This was an alien warlord who had led an invasion fleet against Earth. How could he possibly be scared? Yet when they looked closer, they noticed something unusual about Vrax. His posture was less imposing now. His shoulders slumped slightly. His glowing eyes, which had once radiated arrogance, now seemed weary. As the standoff continued, Lily approached Vrax again, ignoring the protests of the adults around her. She held out another bottle of water, this time accompanied by a sandwich wrapped in foil. "You must be hungry," she said gently. "It's okay. You can trust us." For a moment, Vrax hesitated. Trust was not something he understood well. In his world, alliances were forged out of necessity, not kindness. But as he looked into Lily's trusting gaze, something inside him softened. Slowly, he accepted the food, unwrapping the foil with clumsy fingers. The smell of bread and cheese wafted up to him, unfamiliar yet oddly comforting. He took a bite, chewing slowly as if savoring the experience. The scientists watching from a distance couldn't believe what they were seeing. An alien leader, reduced to accepting charity from a human child. It was surreal, almost poetic. One of them whispered into a communicator, relaying the scene back to command. Higher-ups debated what to do next. Some argued for immediate capture and interrogation. Others suggested observing the situation further. Eventually, a decision was made. A delegation of officials approached Vrax, flanked by armed guards. They spoke slowly and clearly, hoping he might understand some of their words. "We mean you. No harm," one of them said. "But we need answers. Why did you attack us?" Vrax straightened, his pride reasserting itself. "Your planet stood in my path," he replied gruffly. "I sought only to claim what was mine." "And now?" the official pressed. "What do you seek now?" Vrax glanced at Lily, who stood quietly beside him. Her presence reminded him of how much he had misjudged humanity. Their laughter, their kindness, their resilience. It was all part of something greater than he had ever imagined. "Now," he began, his voice quieter than before, "I seek understanding." The crowd fell silent, stunned by his admission. Even the hardened soldiers lowered their weapons slightly, sensing that this moment was different. Here was a conqueror humbled by the very beings he had sought to dominate. It was a turning point, not just for Vrax, but for humanity as well. As night fell, temporary accommodations were arranged for Vrax. He was taken to a secure facility, where doctors tended to his injuries and linguists worked tirelessly to improve communication. Throughout it all, Lily remained a constant presence, visiting him whenever she could. She brought books, drawings, and stories, sharing pieces of her world with him. In return, Vrax shared fragments of his own, describing the stars he had traveled and the battles he had fought. Bit by bit, the wall between them began to crumble. What started as an act of kindness grew into something deeper, a bond built on mutual respect and understanding. For the first time in his long life, Vrax realized that true strength wasn't about domination or conquest. It was about connection. And though he still carried the weight of his past actions, he knew he could never go back to the way things were. Far above Earth, the remnants of the Zorvathian fleet lingered, unsure of what to do next. Their leader was gone, presumed dead. Without Vrax's guidance, they lacked direction. Some ships drifted aimlessly, while others prepared to retreat. The humans, meanwhile, celebrated their victory, not just over the invaders, but over hatred and fear itself. In the days that followed, news of Lily's encounter with Vrax spread worldwide. People marveled at her courage and compassion, hailing her as a symbol of hope. Little did they know her simple act of kindness had already begun to reshape the destiny of two worlds. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the echoes of her laughter continued to ripple outward, carrying a message of peace that transcended borders, species, and even galaxies. The days turned into weeks as Vrax remained in Earth's custody, his once mighty presence now reduced to that of a guest, or perhaps a prisoner, depending on how one looked at it. The facility where he was housed was both secure and comfortable, designed to ensure his cooperation while keeping humanity safe. Scientists, linguists, and diplomats worked tirelessly to communicate with him, piecing together fragments of his language and culture. But it wasn't just the experts who shaped this new chapter. Lily continued to play a pivotal role. Every day she visited Vrax, bringing small gifts or drawings she had made for him. Her kindness never wavered, even when others questioned why. She bothered. "He's not so different from us," she would say simply, shrugging off their concerns. To her, Vrax wasn't an alien warlord anymore. He was someone who needed help finding his way back to himself. And slowly but surely, her persistence paid off. Vrax began opening up in ways no one expected. He spoke about his planet, Zorvathia, a world of shimmering crystal cities and endless deserts under twin suns. He described the rigid hierarchy of his society, where power was everything and emotions were seen as weaknesses. As he talked, it became clear that his arrogance hadn't stemmed from malice but from conditioning, a lifetime spent believing that dominance was the only path worth walking. Listening to him, Lily realized that Vrax wasn't inherently cruel. He was lost. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Lily brought Vrax a drawing she had made. It depicted Earth from space, surrounded by swirling galaxies and twinkling stars. In the corner, she had sketched two figures, one tall and blue, the other small and human, holding hands beneath the vast cosmos. Vrax studied the picture silently, his glowing eyes softening. "Why do you show me this?" he asked, his voice quieter than usual. "Because we're all part of the same universe," Lily replied. "We might look different, but we're connected. You don't have to fight anymore. You can choose something better." Her words lingered in the air, sinking deep into Vrax's mind. For years he had believed that conquest defined greatness. Yet here was a child showing him another way, a path built on understanding rather than fear, connection rather than control. He didn't know if he could change completely, but for the first time in his life, he wanted to try. As word of Vrax's transformation spread, debates erupted among Earth's leaders. What should be done with him? Some argued that he should be executed as punishment for leading the invasion. Others suggested using him as leverage against the remaining Zorvathian forces still hovering near Earth's orbit. But Lily's family stepped forward, advocating for a third option: leniency. "He's changed," Lily's father told the council during a televised meeting. "Not because we forced him, but because someone showed him kindness. If we punish him now, what does that say about us? That we're no better than those we accuse?" His words struck a chord with many. Humanity had faced unimaginable odds and emerged victorious, not through hatred, but through unity and courage. Wasn't it fitting, then, to extend that same spirit of forgiveness to Vrax? After much deliberation, a compromise was reached. Vrax would be allowed to live, but only if he shared critical information about Zorvathian technology and tactics. In exchange, Earth promised safe passage for any surviving Zorvathians willing to leave peacefully. When the terms were presented to Vrax, he accepted without hesitation. For the first time in his life, he felt a sense of purpose beyond domination. Working alongside human scientists, he explained the intricacies of Zorvathian engineering, offering insights that could help Earth defend itself in the future. His knowledge proved invaluable, bridging gaps in understanding between the two species. Over time, trust grew, not just between Vrax and the humans, but within Earth itself. Nations that had once been divided united under a common goal: ensuring peace in the galaxy. Months passed, and the remnants of the Zorvathian fleet finally departed, leaving Earth's skies clear once more. The threat had been neutralized, but the impact of the encounter lingered. Humanity had proven its strength, not just militarily, but morally. People around the globe celebrated not only their victory, but also the compassion that had guided their actions. Monuments were erected to honor the bravery of those who had fought, and schools began teaching lessons about the importance of empathy, even toward one's enemies. For Vrax, the time came to return home. Though Earth had become a second home, to him he knew he couldn't stay forever. His people needed him, not as a conqueror but as a leader willing to guide them toward a brighter future. Before departing, he met with Lily one last time. "I owe you more than I can ever repay," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. You showed me what it means to truly live, to feel, to connect, to grow. I will carry your lessons with me always. Lily smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. Just remember to keep laughing, she teased gently, even when things get hard. Vrax chuckled, a sound rich and warm, unlike the cold laughter he had once known. I will try, he promised. Then, turning to face the assembled crowd of scientists, officials, and townsfolk, he bowed deeply. Thank you, he said simply, before boarding the ship that would take him back to Zorvathia. Years later, stories of Vrax's redemption echoed across the stars. On his home planet, he worked tirelessly to reform Zorvathian society, encouraging his people to embrace cooperation over conquest. Change didn't come easily, it never does, but Vrax persisted, driven by the memory of a little girl who had laughed freely and loved unconditionally. Back on Earth, Lily grew up to become a diplomat, traveling the galaxy to foster alliances between species. She often thought of Vrax, wondering how he was faring. One night, while stargazing, she spotted a familiar constellation and smiled. Somewhere out there, amidst the infinite expanse, he was doing the same. And though they were separated by light years, their bond remained unbroken, a testament to the power of kindness, understanding, and hope. In the end, it wasn't weapons or shields that saved humanity. It was the courage to believe in something greater than themselves. And as long as stars burned brightly in the sky, that belief would continue to shine, lighting the way for generations to come.